Hey guys, so you're wondering if an amplifier and a car drains your battery, or you're wondering why does my amplifier drain my battery? Or maybe you're wondering why does my battery drain, period. Okay, so there's multiple answers to this question. Obviously, there's several questions involved, but all of them are going to be answered by the same basic explanation. So, first of all, in your car, there are certain devices that remain operational as long as the voltage in the car is above a certain level. So, for example, the receiver that receives your trigger when you use your automatic door opener thing, that's a radio. That has to be on to hear that signal. Same thing with your car security system. To actively monitor, it has to be on. Some of these things will cause a drain. It's usually like 1/10 of an amp, maybe 15% of an amp. Not much. And for the most part, your car can go weeks without being started and still not lose enough power to be a problem. Having said that, aftermarket stereo equipment, the amplifiers mainly, the big ones, contain capacitors. And if you've seen any amp guts pictures, you'll have seen those capacitors. The big round black or whatever color they are, barrel shaped looking things, kind of looks like a thimble. A whole bunch of those on the board. Well, capacitors are like batteries in one sense, as they can contain energy. But they're unlike batteries in another way. If there's nothing taking the energy away, if they're just sitting there, they will slowly bleed and run out of power. Now, your power supply to your amplifier, that big cable, the big cable and the big ground are connected to the board. Even though you've got a remote wire that tells the amp to turn on and off by sending it a signal or taking that signal away, the main power and ground is still connected to that board. And those two will try to maintain the charge on those capacitors. So the capacitors bleed down over time, and the battery, the car's electrical system, continually puts power back in those capacitors and keeps them charged. So when you turn the amplifier on, the circuit doesn't get shocked. This is just the design, and it's the way it's been done, and it's the way it's going to continue to be done. Now, the bigger the amplifier you have, or the more of them, the more of these capacitors, and the larger these capacitors, you're going to have to maintain a charge on while the vehicle is still turned off. Okay, stopping that explanation right there, I want to talk about supercapacitors. So, a supercapacitor is a energy storage device that you add to a system. If it doesn't have any electronic controls in it, if it's just a capacitor, right? Just the capacitors with bus bars and cables, like the Maxwell Supercap banks and stuff that people will build, those have the same problem. They do bleed down, and anything else in the system, batteries, whatever there are in the system, will continually try to charge those back up. Now, they carry so much power that even though they bleed down, it takes a very long time for those guys to bleed out. So weeks or more can go by without any problem. On those really big cat banks, they'll usually start the car up no problem, especially if it's been being driven more than a few times a week. So you could use one of those, and you really have to worry about it running out of power. The Ioxys supercapacitor has a computer in it that disconnects the capacitor from the engine and the rest of the electrical system when the vehicle's been powered off for a short period of time. It just turns it off, and so that the capacitors will bleed down. but it won't allow the rest of that system to try to charge those back up. So they're very safe for that purpose. They'll also hold on to a charge for quite a long time. And if you're wondering how that capacitor is able to start a vehicle when the batteries essentially can't start the vehicle, when you turn a thing on, you push the little button in the app and tell it to go to start mode. What it does at that point is take power from the battery that's still there. It may only be 10 volts or 10.5 volts. And that voltage will slowly put enough power into that capacitor to where it's able to start the car. So there's that. Now, back to the amplifier thing. So since your amplifier does sit there and consume power, more power if you have a bigger, more powerful amplifiers or more of them, it will deplete your battery. If your car is going to be sitting for a few days, maybe a week, it's not going to be a problem. Even a couple of weeks, it's not going to be a problem. Even 2 or 3 weeks, it's not going to be a problem. But if you're going to have it sitting there for 2 or 3 months, you're probably going to want to pull the fuse that runs through your amplifiers. Just that fuse that you should have located up there under the hood by the battery, just disconnect it. Pull the fuse out or disconnect the power wire or disconnect the ground wire at the amplifier or whatever. Take it out of the circuit. If you're going to store the vehicle for any length of time, a month or more, disconnect the power from the amp or disconnect the ground from the amp. Just disconnect one of them. This will prevent you from charging those capacitors in there for a month with nothing feeding power back into that battery. And you potentially getting home from your whatever you were doing and finding that your battery is in fact dead. There's that. Anyway, if you found this helpful, any part of this, be sure and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down there, because we are getting ready to do a really cool build in the Tahoe. You guys are going to get a kick out of the wall system that I'm putting in there. I'm doing the whole electrical system over, well, most of it, and it's going to be really good. Very inclusive and very busy and very, a lot of things, but it should be good. And I'll be trying to record as much of it as I possibly can because I'm a YouTuber and this is what I do. Anyway, guys, y'all have a good one. Peace.